The Baltimore Ravens select Lamar Jackson.
There it is.
Wow. Quarterback, Louisville.
This is the greatest playmaker in the history of football at that position. It's Lamar Jackson.
He's the quarterback. We've never seen anything like this.
What are they getting? Everything out of me. They're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that. Ozzie.
These analysts aren't wrong about Lamar Jackson. He is that great in the regular season. In fact, he's historically great. After last season, he made one of the NFL's all-time shortlists. Only 3 QBs won multiple MVPs before 28 years old: Favre, Mahomes, and Lamar. Now, he might add a third from his 2024 campaign, which would create his own club. The only QB in NFL history with 3 MVPs before 29 years old. Sure, he might lose the award to Josh Allen, he'd be my vote, but Lamar's dominance is undeniable. 2024 was probably better than his 2 MVP seasons. The legs are working per usual with 915 rushing yards and 4 TDs, but it's the arm that stood out. For years, it was fair to critique Lamar for his ability to come up big and beat high-quality teams from the pocket. This evaporated in 2024 after he posted a shocking 41 TDs and just 4 interceptions. Many of these TDs came via very tight windows. It was a massive point of growth that seemingly came at the perfect time. After a tough home loss versus Philly in Week 13, the Ravens found themselves at 8-5, down 2 games in the division. Their bye was the following week, and whatever Lamar and Harbaugh told the team, it worked. They did a complete 180 to end the season in near perfect fashion. 4 straight dominant wins, 2 of them over playoff teams, and all by at least 17 points. The surge was enough to secure the division, and Lamar was exceptional. He passed for 12 TDs and just 1 interception in that final stretch. He was dynamic, efficient, and prolific, but most importantly, he was nearly mistake-free. This is the key difference between December Lamar and January Lamar. To zoom out in the regular season here, Lamar's record is 70-24. His .745 percentage is good enough for 6th in NFL history, but if we turn to the playoffs, Lamar is a nasty 3-5. That .375 percentage is ugly enough for 4th worst of any QB with at least 7 starts. Only once before in NFL history have we seen one of the greatest regular season QBs be simultaneously one of the all-time tragic playoff QBs. Now, Lamar's struggles are often comped with legends like young Elway, Marino, or Manning. The first 2 don't really hold up. Elway and Marino both went 4-3 in their first 7 starts and secured a conference title. Only Manning had an equally tragic start to his playoff career. It's a small and sad 2-man group, but at least Manning provides hope, something Lamar desperately needs after his most recent collapse in Buffalo. A disastrous first half came complete with a head-scratching interception in the first quarter and a disgusting fumble in the second. The mistake-free phenom had once again devolved from his regular season form. No one could possibly argue that those 2 plays were undoubtedly the reason that the Ravens exited the first half down 11. Even Lamar himself took the blame after the game, but that didn't stop the latest excuse from bubbling to the top.
And like I've been saying all season, every time we're in situations like this, turnovers play a factor. Penalties play a factor. Tonight, the turnovers, we can't have that, And that's why we lost the game, because as you can see, we're moving the ball wonderfully. It's hold on to the ball. I'm sorry for my language. Annoying. I'm tired of
Now, nobody is questioning Lamar's leadership. He was nothing but class after the game. He gave an immediate hug to Josh Allen and was very honest in that presser. It's odd that the conversation still fails to center around his own words. If you let the media tell it, this is just the latest case of Lamar being let down by his teammates. Never mind his 2 nasty first-half turnovers that forced the Ravens to play from behind versus an offense that scored 30-plus on 12 different occasions this year. It was the Mark Andrews fumble and drop that doomed the Ravens. Never mind the fact that the Ravens still needed OT if Andrews made the final play. Nope. Per usual, it's not Lamar Jackson's fault. Right now, after yet another disastrous playoff exit, is where the Lamar Jackson excuses need to end. The Ravens have given their QB everything he could possibly ask for. Financial security in a giant contract, an offense designed specifically around his skill set, elite weapons including one of the greatest running backs to ever live, and a defense with an AFC leading 4 Pro Bowlers. In his 8 playoff games, Lamar has taken these excellent ingredients and cooked up the chef's equivalent of the public school lunches that came on that styrofoam tray. It's the kind of meal that leaves you hungry, disappointed, and a little sick. What we're examining in this video is the truth of these 8 starts. Has Lamar actually been better than his 3-5 record suggests, or is he deserving of a spot alongside Peyton Manning as the only 2 excellent young QBs who became notorious playoff chokers? What we're going to do is examine all 8 of these starts to find out, and I promise the results are shocking. But first, a word from our sponsor, which is me. I'm the sponsor of this video because every night I host my own sports game 5-card draw. It is completely free to play, and every night we ship the winner a pair of sneakers. Nice sneakers. I've hardly promoted it, but over 50,000 of you have already played. You don't even need to download an app. Just go to 5card.co, which is linked in the caption, and you'll have 5 random players dealt to you. The goal is to pick the 3 that will have the most total points. Real points, not fantasy. When we do football, it's total yards, and baseball, it's total bases. Now, if you don't win, you're still alive. We have a monthly leaderboard with even bigger prizes. Again, the game is completely free. You must be at least 13 and in the US to play. Now, back to Lamar Jackson and his 8 very questionable starts. Lamar's first playoff action came as a rookie at home versus the Chargers. Baltimore entered as a 3-point favorite, but the idea of them winning the game evaporated almost immediately. Nothing was working, especially the passing. In the first half, Lamar's passer rating bottomed out at 0.0 as his total number of fumbles and interceptions outpaced his completions. As the players jogged to the tunnel, one of the all-time deflating QB stat lines flashed. Lamar Jackson, 2 of 8 for 17 yards and an interception. Many thought Harbaugh, who found himself shut out 12-0 at half, would pull Lamar in favor of Flacco, but he stuck to his guns and it did not pay off. The final score read 23-17, but the only 2 Ravens TDs came in garbage time. Despite the Chargers' softened D in the fourth quarter, Lamar finished with less than 200 yards passing and 3 turnovers. An awful playoff debut, but we were all willing to give the rookie a pass. Lamar returned in 2019 on top of the world. The second-year pro was the league's unanimous MVP, and his Ravens earned a first-round bye as the 1 seed. Baltimore was seen as a perennial lock. Surely the 10-point favorite playing at home versus a shaky Titans defense would come out hot, but they did anything but that. Impossibly, this game was never particularly close. Lamar threw a pick on his first possession and capped it off with a 15-yard roughness penalty. Tennessee converted the turnover into a touchdown and never looked back. 2 Tucker field goals made the first half score 14-6, but the second half wasn't much better. Lamar threw another interception in the third quarter and lost a fumble just before the fourth. For the second straight playoff game, he failed to score a TD until garbage time as the Ravens were stunned 28-12. 2020 was a chance for redemption as the Ravens once again drew Tennessee, except this time the game was in Nashville. Baltimore is favored by a more modest 3.5, but the nightmare seemed to be on repeat. After the Titans went up 7-0, Lamar handed them the ball back just 3 plays later via another first-half interception. Tennessee converted for a field goal to make it a 2-score game, but Lamar battled back to make it 10-10 at half. A loss here would have been detrimental, but to Lamar's credit, he came out firing on all cylinders in the second half. The Ravens controlled the pace with a steady diet of everything Lamar. He finished with a whopping 59 passing attempts and 20 carries. His 365 yards in the air were shocking, and 143 on the ground were prolific. It felt like the playoff woes were in the rearview mirror, but he'd have to back it up versus Buffalo in the divisional. Going to Buffalo in January is never an easy task, especially when you have a QB from sunny Pompano Beach, but the Ravens got off the plane as a 2.5-point road favorite. Buffalo struck first with a field goal in a game where it looked like scoring would be at a premium. The Ravens answered back just before the half to make it 3-3. This was a massive moment for Lamar. A win here in his first 2 playoff starts could be chalked up to young QB growth. A loss here and his playoff record would drop to 1-3, and the week before would seem like a fluke. Buffalo struck first again to go up 7. Upon the Ravens getting the ball back, disaster struck. Lamar marched his offense down to the Bills' 9-yard line before throwing a 101-yard pick 6. It was the final score of the game as the Ravens flew home after mustering up just 3 points. Lamar's final stat line was ugly. 14 of 24 passing for 162 yards and a pick 6 complemented by just 9 carries for 34 yards. Now, the next couple years were strange. The Ravens failed to make the playoffs in 2021. They battled back to make it in 2022, but injuries prevented Lamar from starting the final 5 games of the regular season. He also wasn't healthy enough to start the first-round playoff game versus the Bengals. Tyler Huntley started in his place and lost. 2023 became a prove-it year. At this point, Lamar's playoff struggles were well documented, but additionally, he would need to prove he was worth his massive 5-year, $260 million contract, and he did just that in the regular season. Lamar ran away with his second MVP, and just like 2019, his Ravens were once again the 1 seed. Baltimore became a massive 9.5-point favorite versus Houston at home in the divisional round, but unlike the last time they were a perennial lock, Lamar came through. Baltimore went to half tied 10-10, but Lamar was mistake-free and extremely efficient through the air. He came out hot in the second half and took the lead via 15-yard scramble TD and never looked back. The Ravens won the second half 24-0 as Lamar finished 16 of 22 for 152 yards and 2 passing TDs. The ground game was even better, 11 carries for 100 yards and 2 more TDs. But just like the last time he won a playoff game, he'd have to back it up in the next round versus a great QB. Nearly the same rules applied from the Ravens' 2020 appearance in Buffalo to this game versus KC, except this one was bigger. It was Lamar's first AFC Championship appearance, and it was at home. The NFL's MVP had the chance to vanquish not just the Chiefs, but his demons. It would be impossible to call Lamar a choker if he beat Mahomes en route to the Super Bowl. It would definitely be difficult, but the Ravens entered as 4-point favorites. Baltimore got the ball first, but went 3 and out. KC punished them as Kelsey caught a 19-yard pass to open the scoring. This marked the 5th time in 6 playoff starts that Baltimore trailed to start. The Ravens found themselves down 17-7 at half, but it could have very easily been more. Lamar was shaky. He coughed up a fumble in his own end, but luckily the Chiefs failed to convert a short field. The second half was do or die. Up to this point, Lamar had 0 second-half comebacks in playoff games, but it was more of the same. Casuals like to blame this game on Zay Flowers, who lost a fumble to start the 4th quarter. It was a devastating play, but here's the facts. The Ravens were down 10 at that time, and just a few possessions later, they were still down 10 when Lamar folded. They were about to enter the red zone with 6 minutes remaining when Lamar threw an interception to Deion Bush. KC would go on to win 17-10. It was far from Lamar's worst performance, but multiple turnovers and a total of 10 points was far from acceptable. A pattern officially appeared in 2024. Any year in which Lamar was worthy of first-place MVP votes, the Ravens would enter the playoffs as massive favorites. The Steelers came to Baltimore as a 9.5-point underdog, and it showed. The game wasn't close for a minute, and to be honest, Lamar didn't have to do much through the air. The Ravens finally jumped out to a hot start, and much of it was thanks to Lamar's legs. They jogged to the locker room up 21-0 at half, and a grand total of 0 people in the building gave Pittsburgh a chance. They were right. The second half was more of the same. Through the air, Lamar was an efficient 16 of 21 for 175 yards and 2 TDs. On the ground, he took 15 carries for 81 yards as the Ravens rolled 28-14. Once again, Baltimore drew Buffalo in the divisional. It was the same exact divisional matchup as 2020 with nearly an identical set of rules. A great performance and a win would back up the round 1 results, while another loss versus a great QB would drag his playoff record down to 3-5. Lamar had never won consecutive playoff games, but he'd been favored in all 7 of them. This was no different. Despite Buffalo being the higher seed and playing at home in sub-20-degree weather, Baltimore was favored again, this time by just a point. The 19-degree chill at kickoff didn't seem to bother Lamar. The Ravens opted to receive and went straight down the field for 7, but Buffalo answered. It wasn't time to panic until once again, Ravens fans' recurring nightmare emerged. Lamar was coming off his best regular season to date. His 41 passing TDs were prolific, but his 4 turnovers were stunning. He was playing the cleanest football of his career, but if we learned anything from his playoff record, it's that the Ravens failed to survive games he turned the ball over multiple times. On the very next possession, Lamar sailed an interception well over the head of Rashad Bateman. Ravens fans held their breath as their defense bailed them out and stopped Buffalo from converting it into points. Now, Lamar appeared to shake it off as he led the offense back towards the red zone, but disaster struck. Lamar coughed up one of the all-time ugly, confusing playoff fumbles as Von Miller scooped it and nearly scored. Buffalo punched it in 4 plays later and again just before half to make it 21-10. This was yet another opportunity for Lamar to show the world he could come from behind in a playoff game, and for a minute, it looked possible. After connecting with Likely on a 24-yard touchdown pass, the Ravens attempted a 2-point conversion to tie the game, but Mark Andrews dropped a very catchable pass. It was all over, and the Lamar apologists secured their target. Andrews also coughed up a key fumble in the second half. He was the easy scapegoat, but Lamar was equally bad. Both players had 2 turnovers. Lamar's 2 in the first half were the reason the Ravens were in such a bad position, and Andrews' 2 in the second half were the reason they failed to come back. It was a completely deflating end for Lamar. Again, it wasn't his worst playoff game or even one of his 3 worst, but it was bad. His 6 carries for 39 yards were largely ineffective, and his turnover train continued. It marked the 4th time in 8 playoff games he turned the ball over multiple times. The truth about Lamar Jackson is that he's everything and then some in the regular season. If he continues this pace for the next 5 years or so, he will definitely go down as one of the best, maybe the best regular season QB in NFL history. What's that really worth though? It's okay to not have a ring. Dan Marino is widely regarded as one of the best to ever do it, but at least he made the Super Bowl. Lamar is at the turning point of his career here. It's almost the same exact place Peyton Manning found himself to start the 06 season. He had a 3-6 record and the unfortunate situation where Brady was in the same conference. He completely flipped his career after he led Indy to 4 straight playoff wins, including the AFC Championship over Brady's Pats and then the Super Bowl over Chicago. Now, I don't think the bar is that high for Lamar. The AFC is extremely tough. If Lamar was able to win the conference, you couldn't call him a choker with a straight face, but that's where we are. Lamar Jackson is currently one of the best to ever do it in the regular season and completely unreliable in the playoffs.